Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It has indeed been a while since our last video. Nevertheless, the portfolio has been running, everything has been fantastic, and all of our stocks have been doing great, barring, ironically, the only non-Indian security being down about 22%, which is Arch Resources, now merged into Core Natural Resources, with the merger being one of the main catalysts for the thesis in the investment, citing synergies. Nevertheless, Yatharth, Edelweiss, Swiggy, all of these names have been doing fantastic. And we will definitely have a short update video at the end of this month, and then following that at the end of every month to take a look at the additions, subtractions, and key outlooks and notes for that month and the next month. But for now, let's take a look at our latest stock pick in our portfolio, Updater Services. This video style is going to be significant, is going to be very informal, as will all the future ones, simply due to timing conflicts and the fact that all of this is time bound. Let's take an example. Yesterday, I was looking at the U.S. markets. I was taking a look at this one other stock in the healthcare industry. For all of you who know me, know that I love that. I love healthcare stocks and especially hospital stocks of sorts. So they run a highly specialized micro hospitals, they call it. Net, it's gone up about 32% in the last 3 days, last what, 2 days, ever since I started screening it, well, 5 days ago, and thinking it's extremely attractive. But anyhow, it goes to show, right? All of this is time bound. So, updater services, we started adding on to this position yesterday. Currently, so it IPO'd in October 2023 at 285, peaked at 420, and currently is running at 193. We are heavy buyers anywhere between 185 to 210, with the expected average holding to be 194, around there. So let's take a look at their business function first. So they have IFM and BSS. Now, what is that? IFM is integrated facility management. So these are all of your soft services. So your housekeeping, cleaning, pest control, landscaping, your on-site warehouse management, production service, support services, inventory control. Then you have your hard services, so mechanical, electrical, um, um, equipment management, institutional catering, so all your corporate events, food needs, F&B needs, etc., all sorted out there. Warehouse management, general staffing, so for recruitment, payroll, HR, administration, all that kind of stuff, right? Think of it as a one-stop shop. Their clients consist of Amazon, Bajaj, Wellspun, Schneider Electric, Aditya Birla, Dyson, among others. And so let's take Bajaj Auto, for example. Now, Bajaj Auto and Amazon as well in this case would require basically all of these services, right? They would require all of these. Now, can they go out and hire all these individuals on their own? Yes, sure. But will it take them significant more amount of money and allocation than if they were to have, let's say, if they were to pay a certain small premium to this one entity that can do it all for them and can organize this all for them? Consider like a Just Dial, one-stop shop. They call up Updater Services, and Updater Services provides them all of these functions, right? So it's a win-win for both of them. Then we have BSS. BSS has sales enablement services, right? So this is a fancy way to say call centers. Audit and assurance. So all your accounting stuff, employee background verification. This is a growing concern, growing industry. Employers are taking this more seriously. Mailroom management, logistics, airport ground handling. This is very important because we can see with Viksit Bharat and the rise of BJP, last 10 years, we've had about 200 plus airports being built. So a lot of airport related business going on there, grown in the last 5 years and to be grown, in the next 20. Now, what can you think is the difference between these two? Well, first and foremost, IFM. The main issue is that the margins with IFM is extremely low. Why is that? Because there's low barriers to entry. Anyone can start a business technically with IFM. Now, it's going to take capital, of course, it's going to take a lot of work, but is it hard, especially relatively? No, it's not. Right? No, it's not. Which is why the industry is extremely fragmented. There's many small players out there, and they're constantly in a bidding war. They are constantly in a bidding war. Um, and so they have to push margins down in order to actually win a bid. So EBITDA margins are extremely low here. BSS, on the other hand, much higher. Because if we were to just take, for example, if we were to compare a call center versus a cleaning service, the difference in quality provided between two different call centers versus two different cleaning services would be significant. And that is because, let's say, the lead generation capabilities or the client retention ratios of the call center would be different to the cleaning service because it's a much harder endeavor to pursue. Right? Same thing with audit and assurance, same thing with airport ground handling, right? All of the efficiency here would be different. So here the margins are higher, and here the client retention ratios are also high. 95% of clients that take on end up staying, and that client becomes a high value added client. So once they snag them, they're there to stay, right? And now business is just growing with that one particular client because as that company is growing, their staffing needs are going to increase, and by extension, updata services is revenue and then bottom line as well. But again, we need to keep this short and crisp. So we'll take an overview. Let's take a look at the overview. So market cap is small. It's just a 1,300 CR market cap, right? Again, fragmented for now, that is. We're going to get to the acquisition parts in a bit, but a lot of growth, scope of growth right here, right off the bat with the market cap. Right. So PE we're seeing is currently running at 11.5, industry average 23, its own historical average 28. Fantastic. PB 1.3 versus 2.89. Again, attractive. Same thing with return on capital employed. Same thing with the debt to equity ratio. However, that of course is to do with them not paying back all their liabilities with the equity issuance for the IPO, which happened again in October 2023. We at Vaish Equity Research believe that the demand for this sector has found its bottom and should improve with both top line and margins. The diversification between their IFM and their BSS sector, we believe, is a strong point and calls for a higher valuation, effectively pursuing horizontal M&A and bargain prices. Now, notice I mentioned that IFM is BSS makes up 35% of the company's revenue, yet accounts for 60% of its EBITDA, right? Now, this BSS actually didn't exist before. They've started this in about the last 5 years. And this they've started to, because initially there were only IFM since its inception, as I mentioned. But recently, through inorganic acquisitions, they have started acquiring these BSS businesses, mainly Athena, Danao, and Matrix. If we take a look at their annual statements here. So Matrix key customers, Wipro, TCS, Kotak, P&G, Canon. Here they offer employee background verification and audit and assurance. Athena, we have their outbound calls, inbound calls. So we have the call centers here. ICICI Bank, Geo Financial Services, Tata Capital, all of the salespeople that are calling you, who knows? They could be from updater services. In fact, they probably are, right? Dinave. Now, this is their digital marketing, field marketing, sales intelligence, offering all that data, Microsoft, Lenovo. These are all massive opportunities and high margin businesses. We can see that that's reflected right off the bat. It is reflected right here, the EBITDA margins. Now, this is not an accurate, the last 3 years are not an accurate depiction of what it's actually like. And in fact, we can see that BSS is actually reducing But this has been cited due to upfronting some operational costs in order to acquire the clients and keep them, which makes sense because, again, these are high value clients. It's okay to lose out on the first year, frankly speaking, even the first 3 years. If you know that that client has a high probability of sticking around and value adding a significant amount in the future. So we believe currently it's undervalued based off its DCF and the comparables that we just briefly went through. DCF we may or may not present later on, and then by extension we will also come up with a target which is currently to be decided. But this is a long-term hold. Like this is a value buy, this is a heavy value buy. Now I'm going to be throwing out reasons why we are bullish on this. And again, this is unstructured, this is informal, mainly just for archives, to be honest. I like to go back and watch these videos myself, to see where I could improve, where I went wrong, what I could see that perhaps I was missing. And again, we are not going into detail here, so we're not actually going to know that. I do that personally before I come up with making these investments because money talks, right? Money speaks for itself, and the returns will speak for itself with time, with due time. But for now, let's do that. So, first and foremost, let's talk about promoters. So, Mr. Raghunanda Tangirala, he has been adding a good amount. He has essentially just been buying, and we can see the price that he's been buying at as well, right? 276, 273, 270. He is not sold, by the way, any time throughout this. Another buy, 267, and now recently 345, 317, 288. Now recently, look at this, 247, and just I believe last week he added at 197. Now this is a very, very good sign, right? This is a very, very good sign. We always like to see this. Acquisitions. Now we need to monitor their acquisitions, especially the ones that did inorganically, the ones we mentioned earlier, to take a look at how that's doing, how the synergies are going. But one thing to note is that we love the way that Updata Services has been going about synergizing and formalizing these acquisitions. So what they're doing is they're buying out 80% of these BSS providing companies, right? Buying out all their competitors slowly, slowly, slowly in the fragmented industry. So what they do is they buy 80% of the company, let the, well, I suppose now ex-promoters retain 20% of it, whilst they sort of synergize and figure out, all the business functions and sort of merge slowly and gradually, right? What the incentive here is that then they buy the remaining 20% from the ex-promoters at a premium higher than what they acquired the initial 80% for. So it's a win-win for both, right? Because now they get hands-on experience and knowledge from the ex-promoters, all while benefiting the most from synergy. So we love that. Free cash flows. Now, this is a high free cash flow generating business. And as we can see, they're going to grow up a cash pile in order to continue these acquisitions, right? Because they got to start how it's a cycle actually, if you think about it, right? Bidding war starts, they win a bid, they make their profit, slowly start buying out their competitors. Right now, before you know it, the prices are jumped up a bit, but then you have new entrants coming in, so now the prices goes back down until Updata Services now buys their competitors again and goes back up and down until with the vision that Updata Services eventually reaches a point to which they are superior and um, perhaps they have single-handedly or um, with the assistance of Quest Corp, which is actually the largest player in this industry. Quest Corp also working in staffing and IFM BSS, that there would be about, instead of this fragmented industry, there would be about two or three players, and Updata Services being number one or number two at the very, very least, the bear case. Hmm. One moment. There's a couple problems to look at, though. There's a couple of problems to look at, and that is that as this kind of company grows, its margins may not grow proportionally, especially for the IFM. Why? Because as a company grows, they have more obligations towards employees with employee benefits, um, with the provident funds and whatnot, right? Because right now what's happening is that these companies are working not updater services, but a lot of its competitors, especially the ones that are even smaller, right, that try to snag out that bid by cutting costs to the extreme. They work in almost a gray market if you think about it, right? Employee benefits are not given. They just try to cut corners whenever they possibly can. And that obviously is a disadvantage to all these large organizations, especially when you formalize, especially when you IPO and now you're a public entity, right? You have to keep these things up. Right now, ESG is all the big talk and whatnot, but what does ESG matter if you can't have the most fundamental, quality of upkeep with your employees? So that is something to take into account. But BSS again is different, and that's why operator services stands out. In fact, one of the main thesis driver for this investment is the BSS is now increasing margins. So we're going to see this number change from this 3%. We'll see expected briefly to now mirror opposite. So 3 to 4%, 5%, 6%, 8% until it stabilizes at about 8 to 9, pushing up the company aggregate EBITDA margins, right? So not only is it going to grow at a higher CAGR than IFM BSS, but it also has a higher margin, and it's also going to take up proportionally a larger percentage of revenues than IFM within updater services. So that coupled with the attractive valuation, coupled with the heavy promoter buying, coupled with factors like the rising demand for employee verification services, airport handling services, the call centers, etc. Because as much as people think that robots are going to take over, AI is going to take over, right now and for the next 10 to 15 years, and perhaps even later, especially when you have this abundance of labor, right? In India, we now are a highly service oriented industry, as in we're headed that way, right? We have so many people and that are ready to offer their services, is waiting. So when you can actually talk to a person, why not? People like to talk to people. So these call centers, in my opinion, in Vaish Equity Research, we believe that they are not going, that's not going to be a hindrance for now, at least for now. It needs to be monitored. So we need to monitor the promoter holdings, the acquisitions, the free cash flows, the IFM BSS split, its individual growth, and the operating margins. We also need to watch some of their receivables. And then this whole IT hiring slowdown and then client spending cuts, right? Some of their clients were also spending cuts. I know this is a lot to absorb all over the place right now, but again, this is for archives, and trust me when I say um, that we believe this is a high risk to reward, high RR investment opportunity, significant value buy, and truly, I mean, we look forward to the future of updater services just because our economy has so much of growth left, and the staffing needs are exponential. The staffing needs are exponential, and that's just domestic. That's domestic for physical labor, right? BSS, the scope is even tenfold. Reason being because now you have outsourced calls all the time, right? We can have someone in India provide services basically anywhere in the world, especially when it comes to employee background verification, especially when it comes to call centers, etc. So for these reasons, we believe operator services is a attractive value buy, and we will keep you updated. We will perhaps upload a more comprehensive worksheet. But For now, this is our takeaway, and we look forward to the next video. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, and best of luck.